And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us, and one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it, and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Welcome back to Tinfoil Tales. I'm your host, Brandon. Tonight we're going to be joined with my guest, Kristen. Kristen is a researcher up around the Bridgewater Triangle in northeastern part of the country. She's had several experiences that I wanted to talk to her about. One happens to be with a sea monster. So you don't typically hear a whole lot of those encounters, so I'm definitely looking forward to talking with her about that. Before we bring her on, if you'd like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tales, you can send me an email at tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com, or you can go to tinfoiltales.com and go to the contact section. If you'd like to help the podcast out, share it around. That is the best way of getting the word out there about Tinfoil Tales. And you can also leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to Tinfoil Tales at. So if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, just make sure to click the 5 stars, and it does help me out. And if you'd like to help out by being a supporter of the show, you can check out the Patreon, become a member there. You get early access to all the episodes, and they're all ad-free. But we're going to go ahead now and jump into the conversation with Kristen. Looking forward to talking with her, and I really hope you guys enjoy our conversation. I'd like to take this time to welcome my guest tonight, Kristen. Thanks for coming on here and talking to me.
Hello.
Would you like to let the audience know a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I live in Massachusetts. I've been studying the Bridgewater Triangle area for about 15 years, but I've had experiences my whole life pretty much here. One of them being a sighting in the early 1990s. Before I got into any of this stuff, I was in Cohasset, and I saw what looked like a miniature Loch Ness monster. And I was with my boyfriend at the time, and we were watching the sunrise. And we both just looked at each other and decided, let's never talk about this again. And let's never tell anyone, because no one will ever believe us. And it was interesting, but not creepy. It wouldn't be for 20 years that I would get into research about sea serpents in that area. And to my shock, there were hundreds of articles about sightings of sea serpents in the area of Nantasket, Hull, Cohasset, going all the way down the South Shore to Provincetown. As you probably know, the sea serpents of the North Shore get all the attention. But what people don't realize is how many sea serpent sightings there have been on the South Shore and on the Cape.
What type of sea serpents are in that area that you're aware of? Because I've heard of stuff like, obviously, like Champ and Lake Champlain and other things like that. Is it something similar to that?
So these are all in the ocean, and they seem to stop suddenly around the mid 40s. I have no idea why. Most of the witnesses were fishermen, and people that knew the sea and knew the creatures of the sea. And their accounts seemed pretty legitimate. And there was just my archives for just the sightings from Hull to Provincetown. It's about 3 inches thick of all the articles that I've printed out. So they were reported on quite frequently. Why they stopped in the 40s, I'm not really sure, but there was one incident, and it was the last incident that I know of involving a possible sea serpent, and that was in the late 1970s in the next town over from where I had my sighting in Situate, Massachusetts. And um, people nicknamed that the um, Man Man Hill Beach Monster. I think that was the name of the beach. But something washed up on shore. One of my father's best friends, he had taken his sons down there that day, and they were one of the first people to see it. And he swore that it had flippers, and many people that saw it swore it had flippers. But by the time the scientists from Woods Hole were able to come down and study it, and they had scientists from the aquarium, the creature was ripped to shreds because people were coming down in droves with little Dixie cups and knives and taking pieces home as souvenirs. Um, the final determination was that it was a basking shark, but people that witnessed it that I've talked to swore that it had flippers and there was no way it was a shark.
They seem to use sharks as a explanation for a lot of stuff. It was back in the 1970s, I think it was, when this Japanese fishing vessel brought something up that looked like a decaying plesiosaur, and they said it was a shark. I'm pretty sure they said it was like a basking shark. So it seems to be,
maybe that's the go-to.
yeah. I said it seems to be like the go-to thing for them is to use basking sharks as their explanation for a lot of the unexplained.
But as far as like modern day recent sightings, I haven't heard of any. Not saying that other people have accounts of it. I haven't heard of any.
It's just one of those things, like when it comes to the ocean, for me, you never know what's really in there because just think how vast it actually is. So there could be all sorts of things that we're unaware of that randomly will show up here and there, because I think we've explored like 7 or 8% of the actual ocean. So who knows what's all down there. Yeah.
I know what I saw, and it looked like a baby Loch Ness monster, just basking in the dawn of the sunrise.
How big would you say it would have been?
From where we were sitting, like the neck looked like it was about 6 feet out of the water, and all I could see was the neck and the top of it.
Was it moving in and out of the water, or was it just kind of having its head above the water?
Just kind of, like I said, basking in the sun with his neck up.
I know a lot of people nowadays claim that people see sticks or something floating in the water. I was like, there's a difference in a stick to something that could be a creature.
Yeah, and especially in the ocean, a stick would be unlikely.
Right. Do you think, I know one of the other explanations that tends to get thrown around here by experts, quote unquote, are people see like whale fins. I was like, how are you going to mistake a whale's fin as a neck of something? But that is just...
You know what, though? One time I saw a sunfish. I was at the beach, and for some reason, I grabbed binoculars that day and thought, I'm going to need these today. And they did come in handy because I get to the beach and I see this thing floating in the water. And I see other people looking at it too, but nobody's doing anything about it. So I grabbed the binoculars, and other people wanted to look through it too. And they're saying, I've been watching this thing all day. It's just getting closer and closer. And it was huge. I thought it was a dead shark or a dead whale. And I went to the lifeguard and asked him, and he said it was sea foam. And I didn't believe him, so I called the harbor master. It ended up being a 2,000-pound sunfish. So, I mean, I could see how someone could mistake a sunfish for something.
Right. I didn't realize they got that big.
I know, I didn't either until that day. That was pretty funny. The harbor master came down, and the lifeguards were like 16 years old, and he's all cocky, and he's like, it's sea foam. I'm like, oh, yeah? So the harbor master comes out, and he has the lifeguard go out in a kayak to check it out, and he gets within 20 feet of it, and he gets too scared, and he like paddles back to shore as fast as possible. The the master had to go out with the boat and push it out to sea.
So you're up in the northern eastern part of the country, and up there, we've kind of talked off air about this a little bit, but you have been researching some of the stuff around the area, and it's mainly known for the Bridgewater Triangle.
Absolutely. Yep.
If you would like to talk about some of the things that have happened there that you've experienced and some of the other stuff with that, I mean, I'm cool with that too.
Well, I've had a ton of experiences, so would have to limit it down to cryptid encounters, ghost sightings,
I guess.
all kinds of strange synchronicities.
Mhm.
But here in the Bridgewater Triangle, we have like just about everything, anything you could think of. We have Sasquatch activity to this day, modern activity. As a matter of fact, things have revved up here. And there are a lot of active spots, and people are having a lot of experiences. Not so much Class A sightings. I don't think we've had a Class A sighting in about 10 years here, but a lot of Class Bs and Cs. We have puckwudgies. We have thunderbirds. We have Mothman. So the Thunderbird, everything gets lumped under the category of Thunderbird, but we seem to have three different things going on here. One is a pterodactyl type creature, and that's what most people seem to see. And my experience involved a creature like that, like a pterodactyl looking one. But other people describe like a giant condor. And yet other people describe what sounds exactly like the Mothman. But they're all grouped under Thunderbirds. But it seems like there's three different things going on here to me.
Yeah,
as far as
it
the whole Thunderbird thing.
It sounds like they're grouping a bunch of stuff together just because they can't explain it.
Yes, because there's been at least two witnesses that have seen what they called a Thunderbird, but they said it looked like a man and it flew straight up. It sounds like classic Mothman. We also have hellhound tales here. We have a cryptid that hasn't really been named, and it's like a serpent snake cryptid. I haven't heard any other researchers talking about it, but I've had multiple reports of this thing that people say is absolutely enormous. Everybody's perception of it is different, but it has one similarity, and that is the way it moves. So one person said it looked like a giant tentacle of a squid taking up the entire road. Another person said it looked like a giant person taking up half the road. Another person said it looked like the smoke monster from Lost. And another person said it looked like a Chinese dragon in a parade. And yet another witness said it looked like this big, like 25-foot long snake, but all cut up in equilateral segments, but moving in unison. And it always moves like a Chinese dragon. That's the only similarity, is the way that it moves. They say it's like it slithers and goes up and down like an inchworm. Have you ever heard of anything like that before?
Not particularly that, but I do know that everything that you've mentioned so far is very similar to the stuff that goes on around here. And I think it was back in the 1940s, there was on the outskirts of one of the Salamoni reservoirs, which was the Salamoni River at the time, there was a report of a giant snake, and they actually said it was across the whole road. and then it ended up going down into this waterway, and they never seen it again. But they claim it was at least 20 to 30 feet long for a snake around in Indiana. That's huge. But
Now that's funny because we have this is separate than what I'm talking about because I think this was a very natural snake. But one of the famous stories and one of the original stories that Lauren Coleman told about the Bridgewater Triangle was about CCC workers, Civil Conservation Corps workers working in the Hockomock Swamp in 1939, and they saw a snake as thick as a stovepipe. We actually do have huge snakes. Like I saw when I was a kid, I saw a snake that was at least 15 feet long that had come out of a river. So that could have just been like a natural snake, because that's the only report of a large snake. And like I said, like I've seen them. They're at black Atlantic water snakes, I think. They get really, really big.
mm-hmm.
But not in Indiana, huh?
Last year, I was on my way home, and across the road, and our roads here are probably, each lane is about roughly 12 feet wide. So there was a black snake, and I think it may have been like a rat snake, is what they call them around here, but it was at least 8 feet long because it was almost the width of half the lane. It was across the center, but it took up like over half of each lane. So if you do the math, it's about 8 to 10 feet long, roughly, which is pretty big for a snake around here.
Yeah. Wonder if there was any water around.
Well, if you go the direction it was going, because I actually stopped and got out and helped it cross the road because that's the type of person I am. Everyone else around here is like, oh, it's a snake, you got to kill it. I was like, no, I just took a stick and shoved him off across the road. But I was like, if he's that big, he deserves to keep living. And just the direction it was going, there's actually the river, the Wabash River is not too far down on the other side of the woods. So I think the direction he was heading was towards the water.
Yeah, so can you imagine what's in the ponds and lakes when you go swimming in the ponds and the lakes?
That's one of the other myths that we have in Indiana is the giant turtle of Churubusco. I forget what they actually call it, but it was a story about I think it was a 15-foot snapping turtle, 15 to 20 feet snapping turtle. It was up in one of the lakes just north of where I'm at by like an hour or so. And this was back in one of the ponds they had there. And apparently they drained the pond, and I don't know whatever happened with supposedly this big turtle, but they have like a little festival for it every once in a while. Like once a year they have the Beast of Churubusco festival.
Oh, wow. So we have a turtle like that story too. That's a legend about the Hockomock Swamp as well. And it's blowing my mind how many similarities with your area and my area. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I bet it's just a complete parallel of mythologies and like the same kinds of sightings. It sounds like it. So there's always been this legend about this huge turtle in the swamp that was the size of a Volkswagen buggy. I always assumed it was bullshit until I found out it was one of my friends that saw it, who's like this former military guy, and he's like very scientific and he's into debunking everything. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. That came from you. So I believe that big turtle story. So far we both have big turtles. We have a story of a big snake in the same era, right? The 1930s.
Mm-hmm. I think this one here was the 1940s, but yeah, it's still pretty close.
Close enough. You have Sasquatch, right?
We do have a lot of reports of that. We have a lot of reports of quote unquote werewolves or dogmen. And
Puckwudgies, you have those too, right?
Yep, we have a lot of little people stories. We have a lot of Puckwudgies because there's a mound state park where all the Indian burial mounds are, and a lot of people have reported seeing Puckwudgies there. And we also have a lot of UFO sightings and a lot of weird paranormal stuff. And
okay, yeah. So it sounds like, well, I wonder if I don't know. Are we like parallel? Are our states parallel with each other or something? Could we be on some kind of ley line?
I think a lot of it, honestly, is a lot of this stuff has this. Like when people start digging into certain areas, they all have similar like sightings and encounters in these same locations. And I don't know if it's anything to do with the ley lines or if it's anything like some people say they're like vortexes. Maybe a lot of the areas just have these high energy fields, and a lot of the high strangeness are in these areas, and they have a lot of the same similarities.
You have a lot of granite in your area.
I believe we do. I know there's limestone because I'm pretty sure we're one of the sacred areas at just not too far from my house. They call it Seven Pillars, and it's these formations along the river. And it was one of the sacred sites of the original native tribe that was here. I think it's made out of limestone. But
maybe it's the sacred land because the almost the entire Bridgewater Triangle is sacred. This sacred land everywhere. Just all the burial grounds around here. Our civilization, civilizations lived here 10,000 years ago. We don't even know where the bodies were buried from King Philip's War. Never mind all the people that died in the last 10,000 years. The whole entire area could be a burial ground. That's a lot of people. So before the Pilgrims got here, from Boston to the Cape, there was like 10,000, a population of like 10,000 people. And from 1617 to 1620, there was a plague that wiped out 90% of the native population here. So when the Pilgrims came here, lucky them, they had all the villages cleared out. All they had to do was clear out the bones. And they had fresh water and corn growing. Very convenient.
we had a very strong Native American population here too. They originated from east, but they were forced this direction as seemed to happen to a lot of the tribes. But in 1812, there was a battle with the United States Army, and most of the villages around here were all set on fire, and they were all forced on the Trail of Tears and sent to Oklahoma. So a lot of this area itself is old battlegrounds from the war with the Native Americans.
Okay, so there's another similarity.
Yeah,
I just find it fascinating. It's like it just sounds like the same place.
say here is very much just cornfields, and we do have an Air Force base which was built back in the 1940s, right around the time of World War II, and they used it to train fighter pilots for the war. They actually had other countries come here to train some of their pilots too. And then there's been a lot of speculation as to that base being chosen because of some of the other reasons around here, because there's this area itself, just there's a lot of weird stuff. Like the Circus Hall of Fame is actually here. And why of all this little town there is a Circus Hall of Fame here? Well, they also put the Hall of Fame right where there was a joint from where the couple of rivers meet. It used to be the main hub for one of the Native American villages that was here. But after all of that, and it got burnt down, now the Circus Hall of Fame's there. And they do a lot
What
of...
is it, like a P.T. Barnum museum?
Sort of. They have a lot of relics from P.T. Barnum, but they also have Barnum Bailey Circus and some of the other stuff involved with it too. Peru used to be the winter hub of all the circuses in the late 1800s and early 1900s.
Because that's another connection to the Bridgewater Triangle. So if you go to one of the towns in the Bridgewater Triangle, Middleborough, go to the Historical Society, one of the first things you see is P.T. Barnum's chair. And they have this whole exhibit about Tom Thumb and his wife, Lavinia Warren, who were like the most famous, I know it's politically incorrect, but they called them freaks at the time. And they lived in Middleborough. And also the human skeleton, Isaac Sprague, was from the Bridgewater Triangle. So P.T. Barnum he had to have come here at least a few times because he recruited people from here, all the freaks from the Bridgewater Triangle. Sorry, all you little people and skinny people.
So, if I'm not mistaken, there was a story, and I'm trying to actually look it up right now. They were trying to use P.T. Barnum's people to catch one of the monsters in one of the lakes around here. And I don't know what the story was, and I'm trying to see if I can figure it out. But basically, when you mentioned P.T. Barnum, I saw the name recently because I've been doing a lot of research for this area because I'm trying to write a book about all the high strangeness around here and all the weird encounters and stuff and all the people that I've interviewed from my local area. And one of the stories I came across was one of the old like crews or whatever. They thought some of the animals maybe escaped because the guy that did a lot of the circus stuff around here, his name was Benjamin Wallace. And he was a Civil War veteran, and he bought a bunch of traveling circus stuff, and he went around and he started buying other circus stuff, bought other circuses out. And by the early 1900s, he had so much circus stuff that this like area became a hub for people in the circus to live here during the winter. So they stored all their equipment. They stored all of the animals and all the workers and stuff. They all kind of hung around here. But I saw P.T. Barnum's name brought up because they were searching for one of the lake monsters, I think up north, and I forget which one it was. But it's kind of weird that, again, another connection.
Yeah. I want to know what they were using the little person for in the lake, though. Really bad.
There is a lake just north of where I live, and they call it Manitou. And if you look up the word Manitou, it's one of the Native American words, and I can't pronounce the name of the original tribes. It's like starts with an A, but they're from like northern Michigan area. But a lot of the descendants from around here spoke some of that language. And Manitou, from what I've translated, kind of means spirit. And
are you spelling it Manito? U?
Yes.
A? Okay, so that means God, like creator.
Right. So it's like a spirit, the spirit that like the almighty spirit creator. Yeah. And this is a lake that they named because they actually built it for the tribe. It's actually a man-made lake, and they named it Lake Manitou. But then the native tribe eventually didn't want to use it because they claimed there's a lake monster in it. Now, I don't know of anyone that's ever seen it or anything about it, but that was just one of the stories I turned over after the Army built them this lake. The Miami Indian tribes didn't want anything to do with it because they said there was a lake monster in it.
Do you think that it's possible that they didn't want anything to do with it because man had manipulated sacred land?
I think because it was man-made, and the nickname that they called it was the Devil's Lake.
Oh, yeah, there you go. So it was a sacred area. If anything that's called devil is a dead giveaway that that's a sacred area. That's what the colonists deemed all of these sacred spots because they thought they were worshiping the devil.
Mm-hmm.
So anything with that name or Hobbamock or anything called devil is usually like a sacred Native American spot. So my guess about that spot is they took it as an abomination that man manipulated their land because, they believed, never manipulate the land. If you alter something in one part of the earth, then there'll be repercussions in another. And they would leave everything the way it was. And that's why they lived in wigwams that were completely biodegradable and didn't affect anything and just went right back into the earth. So to make a man-made pond, they probably saw as like sacrilegious.
You mentioned the different sightings, and some of the stuff that you'd mentioned is very similar here too, because we've heard stories of, they called them hellhounds, large black canines that used to chase you as you drove by certain areas out by the rivers. And I've actually been chased by it, but I actually followed the dog. And this ended up just being a dog at someone's house. But other people have reported seeing some big, large black dogs with red glowing eyes have chased them. I never personally saw that one, but the dog that I did see was a large black dog, but it looked like a Great Dane, but he lived at one of the houses. At least that's what we assumed, because that's where he was always at, was like right by their barn fence. But the
Have
other,
you heard of the Bridgewater Triangle hellhound story? The Black Dog of Abington?
I'm not familiar with the whole story. I've heard of the name, but no one's ever really talked about it.
All right, so in 1976, a little girl went out to feed her ponies. They were Shetland ponies, so they weren't like full-size ponies. Shetland ponies are like miniature ponies. And to her horror, there was a huge dog that was the size of the Shetland ponies eating the throats of the ponies, and it was covered in blood. And she ran in the house, got her father. Her father came out with a shotgun. He was who was a firefighter, and shot at the dog. And the dog was not miffed at all, and just sauntered off into the woods. The dog had chased the ponies so that they were in their halters, and they were like tied together, and they couldn't get away. And that's how he got at them so fast. So the dog was on the loose for 2 or 3 days, and there were thousands of phone calls that came into the Abington police station. Children were escorted to their bus stops by police with rifles. It was like horror had come to the town. I lived 2 towns over, and I was 6 years old, and I was terrified. I climbed in a tree all day. So the first fireman shot at it. He missed. They tracked it to railroad tracks where it would seem like there'd be no way to miss the dog. And the police came and they shot, and they just said they missed, and the dog disappeared. And that really just doesn't make any sense. If you saw the place where he was last seen, there's no way to miss. So I don't know. I'm not saying the dog disappeared, but I think that the cop didn't tell the public exactly what he experienced.
Right. A lot of police officers won't say a lot of the weird stuff, because then they might not be police officers much longer than that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the classic story. And if you went on Google, that's what you would hear about hellhounds in the Bridgewater Triangle. But there's actually been modern sightings. Coincidentally, the most modern sighting was in the same town, Abington. And one of my friends was one of the witnesses. It was a giant black dog, and it was chasing a pack of deer. And they said there was just something really unworldly about it. It didn't look like a wolf, but because it was jet black, and the eyes look weird. So that is something that does happen here. It's not one of the most common things, though, that people encounter. Hauntings are definitely the most common experience that people have here. I don't know about down your way.
There is a lot of weird paranormal stuff, and a lot of people go out doing investigations, especially around the old battleground area, just because it's not like Gettysburg where there's that much death, but because it is old native lands and there was a lot of army stuff, they actually have a specific area where they've got graves and stuff for all the fallen army men. And you see some places where this was where one of the chieftains was, this and that. But like, a lot of people go out there because they think that you're going to conjure up something from the area. But oddly enough, people have had Bigfoot sightings out there. I've interviewed a couple people that have had Bigfoot sightings where they do the battle reenactment. So it's kind of strange that, again, there's weird things going on, like a lot of paranormal stuff, but then people see Bigfoot. Like, is there a correlation to that? I don't know, because it's not necessarily when I think of Bigfoot, you think of like desolation, like forest, no one around, this and that, but we're not too far from towns. But
Neither are we. That's why people find it so hard to believe that we could have so much Bigfoot activity here. But there's been at least 8 Class A sightings, and some of them have been documented in Boston newspapers. Um, and there's hot spots that you can go in, and it's like pickup sticks. The structures are insane, and you go there the following week, and some have been deconstructed and some have been added on, and they're not far from the trails. And these places are not far from major roads, and it doesn't make any sense.
You also mentioned like the recent Mothman stuff that we've had here is very reminiscent to what you described. People had said there is here they saw someone they thought was walking down the middle of the road, and then they opened up their coat, and it wasn't a coat, it was a set of wings, and it just like went straight up in the air. Like they didn't use the wings to fly. They just like levitated off the ground and went.
Now, yeah, it's crazy how many similarities, because that sounds like the most famous Thunderbird sighting in the Bridgewater Triangle legend book, proverbial legend book. And that was a sighting in 1971 by a police officer. And just as you described, he was driving down the street and the thing was walking in the middle of the street like a human. And then all of a sudden he saw the wings, and he said the thing just went straight up, like just completely ascended straight up. And I looked it up, and there's only like two kinds of birds that can do that, a hummingbird and something else, but they're tiny. Like it's physically impossible for a bird to propel straight up like that.
Yeah, I don't know of any type of bird that would be able to just fly without flapping wings. I don't know of any person that can just levitate in the air and fly either, though. That's the strange thing about it.
Yeah, wow, we have the same stuff going on.
Yeah.
It's super interesting to me.
So we also have a high concentration of people that have reported seeing dogmen, and that's honestly why I do the show, because I saw something which people would call a dogman back in 2007, and that's why I do my show. That's why I'm investigating a lot of the stuff and researching into it, because I want to know what the hell I saw. And the more I've been digging, the more people have come out and reported seeing similar things, and I never talked about it for so many years because people are going to think you're crazy if you say you've seen a werewolf, because those things aren't real. And
will you tell me what you saw?
It was a large black bipedal canine. It was about,
like how tall?
I'm 6'3" and we were eye to eye, so it had to have been at least over 6 feet tall. But it walked off on like its hind legs, but it was in a weird crouchy position. It wasn't like straight up walking like a human, but when it stood up directly like a person.
Oh, wow. All right. So that's the first difference. We don't have those as far as I know.
But around here, that area where I said the Hall of Fame is for the circus is also a hot spot for people seeing the same thing. I've got people sending me photos of tracks that are from down there. I've had multiple people talk about seeing something down there that they called a werewolf. I've had someone just this past summer said that they were not too far from the area and something like a werewolf ran out in front of them. It jumped over a guardrail and kept running on 2 legs. So there seems to be a lot of weird wolf activity. But then I've also discovered that some of the stuff that goes on around here, there were supposedly legends, and I've actually asked some of the local people that are still attached to the tribes, like ancestry or whatever, but I haven't been able to find anything completely alleging to this. But one of them said that maybe some of these things were spirits that they brought up as protection, because wolves were something that they looked for as like a protective spirit type thing. And they said maybe they conjured something to protect the lands because the lands were sacred to them. So the things that we're still seeing are still in these same areas because they're still trying to protect the lands.
That makes sense to me. And that's what I'm starting to think about Sasquatches and Pukwudgies. They seem to appear in sacred land places. And what if they are protecting the land?
I know from around here, the people that talk about like the little people and everything, they were referred to as like tricksters, and they weren't necessarily good or bad, but they could lure you out somewhere and do harm. Like you could fall somewhere, you could drown or something. They were not to be toyed with, I guess. I don't know. Like that to me almost sounds like fairy stuff. Like when you get back into the fae folk type stories, like you hear like the stories of little people, like the fairies and everything else. They're like mischievous, they're pranksters and tricksters. I've heard a lot of stories about that around here too.
Yeah, so we have the same stories about the Puckwudgies, but I'm utterly baffled by the whole mythology of them, to be honest. Like, I don't understand how they went from being little benevolent little Indians, squished down little Indians,
Mm-hmm.
into these creatures that look different to everyone but have some similarities.
See, and
You know what I mean?
that's what I've noticed too. There are stories of little people that look like little humans, that look like little Native American people. But then I also hear stories of what the Puckwudgies are, and they look like little goblin type things. So I don't necessarily think that the little people and the Puckwudgies are the same, to be honest. I mean, the descriptions, other than them being short, I don't see where one thing looks like a person and the other thing looks more like a little elemental goblin type creature.
Yeah, well, to the Wampanoags, the modern Wampanoags, Puckwudgies are nothing to be trifled with. You're not supposed to say the word. Like, they take it really seriously, but I don't think that they think of them as little people. They look at them as like little demons.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that I've came across is, and I haven't actually spoken to the person, I just come across the story, so it could be complete BS, I don't know, but it was someone was returning home one night, and this was about 10 years ago, and they were driving through the area, and they said they saw what looked like a pale, naked man running on all fours along the side of the road, along the guardrail, and once they got to the other edge, it took off running into the woods. But it wasn't completely human, but it was a naked, pale person looking thing. They said they thought it was a naked, hairless man.
Kind of sounds like a Dover demon.
Yeah. And it goes back to like what people, the creepypasta calls them rakes. And there's stories of pale crawlers where people see this thing on all fours. And I was like, I wonder if that's not, maybe someone's just making it up because everyone all of a sudden was talking about seeing these things, or maybe they really did see something. But that's the only one that I've seen that said that they've seen that in this area. Now, there are stories in other parts of the country of these things, but that's the only one I've seen from my area.
Yeah, well, I've never heard of anybody in all my years of researching this area tell me a shadow person story, but it came from a very unlikely source. About 2 weeks ago, it was a friend of mine from my town. She grew up in my town, and she said she was food shopping. She felt compelled to go to the woods where she grew up and take a walk. And when she went out there, she saw this thing that was about 8 feet tall. It was human shape, jet black, and it was darting in and out of trees, like almost playing hide and seek and like looking at her. And then in a split second, it was not behind a tree anymore. It was on the top of the hill, just looking. And she said the smell was disgusting. She said it made her so sick she didn't make it out to the car even. She started vomiting. And I said, I don't know a lot about it, but it sounds like you saw a shadow person. And she said, no, 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 no. It wasn't a shadow. It was jet black. And she's like, you're the only person I'd tell because I know you won't think I'm crazy. And I'm like, no, I think you saw a shadow person. And then I like looked it up if they have a smell. And sure enough, they a lot of people report this smell of like rotting flesh, and that's exactly what she said. So even isolated reports, like even though shadow people, this isn't like a thing that you hear about. Obviously, anything can come up through my land and your land, and it does, even if it's just one isolated incident. I'm sure there's dozens of people that have seen something similar, but just never reported it.
I have heard from people that have reported seeing shadow figures, like mainly they talk about they see shadows moving in the woods. That I don't know what that could be, but there's been a lot of people that have talked about shadows in their houses, and they've called them shadow men. And most people think that they have some sort of demonic presence to them, because you mentioned rotting meat. That's one of the things that I've heard from people too when they talk about demonic forces, is like you can tell because it has like a weird sulfury rotting meat smell.
Yeah, I don't know. She was really surprisingly calm afterwards. If I saw that, I'd probably not be so calm. I'll just say that. I don't know how she took it so well. She kind of just, and she said somebody was mowing their lawn at the base of the trail, and she was looking at them like they had two heads, like, why are you not noticing this? I'm like, maybe he wasn't seeing anything. Maybe it was just for you. Maybe it was tuned into your frequency only.
Do you have much UFO experiences out that way too?
Tons.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, tons and tons and tons.
I
Started the early 1970s for the southern portion of Massachusetts, and the for the Bridgewater Triangle connections, it started in 1979 and continues to this day. I can't even tell you how many I've seen. I used to document them with a camcorder, but I stopped because they all look the same.
the
After doing it like 100 times, I'm like, why bother? They all look exactly the same.
right. Sometimes I struggle when people are saying that there's UFOs here. I was like, it's hard to tell if it's a UFO or if it's just a known craft, because when you try and record something in the sky at dark and it's just a light, you can't really tell what it actually is because everything looks the same. It gets blurry anyways, and if you zoom in on it, it really blurs out. But
Yeah, so I had an HD camcorder and I lived on the third floor, and I saw so many UFOs in 2012 when I lived in Abington. Um, and I would see them almost every night, and I just keep my camcorder next to my balcony, and I was able to like really zoom in on them, and I could like see the insides of them. They definitely weren't any kind of there was no being in it. It was some kind of energy. I don't know how to describe it. I'll send you the video afterwards. It almost looks like plasma when you zoom in on these fireball UFOs.
mm-hmm.
It looks like plasma spinning inside.
I,
What are they? I don't know. It's not a plane, it's not a helicopter. It's nothing that we've been told about. It could be some military thing, or it could be extraterrestrial. I don't know, but it's something.
weirdly enough, I heard someone on a different show recently talking about plasma and how these things that people are seeing are actually plasma balls. So I don't know how they have
Yeah,
that
that's what they look
information.
like when you zoom in on them if you're able to. And most video captures now are on iPhones, but back in 2012, like I said, I used to use this camcorder, this really, really nice HD camcorder, and I would be able to zoom right in on them. Um, then following year, within that next year, there were quite a few of mass sightings in Abington, and people did catch them on camera. The most I saw was two at a time. Um, I can't remember if it was 2012 or 2013, but I had two witnesses contact me the day after they witnessed a fleet of UFOs zipping over the tree line. Um, and the witnesses lived a half a mile apart. And that was really interesting. And then about 6 months later, a video appeared on YouTube. I don't know who this witness is. I don't know them. I never reached out to them. But they filmed what looked just like what those other two witnesses saw, a fleet of them. And this is like right around the corner from where I used to live. So it was some weird UFO superhighway. I don't know how to describe it, but I would see them constantly. And at first it was very exciting, but it grows boring after a while. You've seen one, you've seen them all.
Do you think that, well, I guess I should ask it this way. Do you know of anyone that's actually seen these orange orbs, but not in the sky, more like towards the ground?
Orange orbs?
Yes, like orange lights.
So we call those spook lights here. And I've never seen one, but we have had tons of reports. But they're usually not on the ground. They usually are at tree level.
That's what I've been finding out around here too. A lot of people see them in the sky, but here recently, we've all thought they were drones. And I've seen them myself, and we thought they were flares. But I've been digging into some of this research, and people have reported seeing them in the woods along the tree lines.
Yes.
And they thought, one of the person's stories said they thought it was someone walking with a light.
Lantern.
Yeah, a lantern. But there was no one there. So I've wondered if, again, this isn't like you just mentioned ghost lights. A lot of people have reported seeing that around here. I was like, maybe it's the orange orbs that people see in the sky. Maybe these are part of that too. I don't know if they're one and the same, but it's weird that they're the same color and the same.
No, you're
thing.
right. They look similar. Huh.
But that's
I've experienced a lot here. That's something that I've never seen myself, but it's not uncommon, I'll say that.
we've seen some in our backyard. And last year I got super excited because I saw green ones, and I've never seen the green ones. So I got my camera, or my phone. I ran out the door, and come to find out my neighbor had put glow sticks on her dogs.
Oh no.
So I seen these green glowing orbs going up and down, and I thought that they were running along my backyard and the fence line. I was like, finally going to get some evidence of something, and come to find out it was just two dogs. Because the time that there was orange ones out back, I yelled for my wife and my son. He'd come looked at them. Never once did I think about recording it until it disappeared. And then I was like,
yeah, natural.
I was like, why did I not record? We watched it for several minutes, and I don't know why I never thought about recording it. But
well, at least you got to be in the moment.
yeah, we again thought it was just a flare, but the way it moved and everything else, I can't say it was a flare because I don't know if flares that kind of move upwards. Usually flares would come down. This thing was stationary, then it moved up and then over and then just disappeared. So kind of strange, but
Yeah, they do, at least for here, they seem to have a connection to like really heavy Native American areas.
well,
Now that I think about it, because I'm thinking, I don't know of any stories in Abington, and there's no evidence of any Native occupation in Abington, but people have seen them in Freetown. That checks that box of ancient civilizations. Rehoboth, check. Bridgewater, check. Easton, check. Interesting.
I think if anyone started to do a lot of research into their local areas, they would probably start to turn up a lot of similarities, and especially from the old days. I was able to uncover a story, and again, it's who knows, but it was originally a UFO, by all intents and purposes, sighting from the 1800s. And it was like the 1890s that they were out farming and they saw something land. I think I'd have to go and find the story. I've got it saved somewhere, but if I remember right, they saw something land out in the field the father and the sons, like the daughter went out there to them and they had saw it and she was afraid. She ran back. The kids got afraid of it because they didn't know what it was, because back then there was no flying machines, and they saw people getting in and out of this thing, and then they got back in and it left. So if this is a true story, and this is from this area, what would have been flying in the 1890s that they could land it and then got back? People got out of it, then got back in it, and then flew off.
Well, if it really happened, it would absolutely be documented in newspaper archives. There's no way that wouldn't. They used to cover everything. They used to cover hauntings, weird coincidences. Like if someone found their wedding ring 25 years after they lost it on the anniversary, they'd send a Boston Globe reporter out to the town to interview the person. So if that happened, that would be in the newspaper.
That's kind of what I was thinking, but the story that I found was someone that said that there was an old VHS tape that they watched, and the person telling it was one of the descendants, like the niece or something of the daughter that was afraid. So I don't know. Like I said, it seems a little too fishy, but I can't prove it or disprove it. So I don't know. But
good story, regardless.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting one way or the other, but that's a lot of the things that go on, though, is like you can't really verify a lot of the stuff that people tell you. You can't verify a lot of the stuff that you find online, but it all makes an interesting story. That especially when you actually do talk to people that have similar experiences and they talk about it, I was like, well, maybe there is some truth to all this stuff.
Yeah, you should dig into your local newspaper archives. Just get a month subscription. You'll have a blast.
Sadly, our local newspaper closed down.
What?
Our local newspaper closed down a year ago. So I assume the library may have some stuff, but we don't have a newspaper.
Like Genealogy Bank, Ancestry.com, and just get as much as you can. Like if you do a month, just grab as much as you can. Start looking up, like, I would want to know about that werewolf thing. So I would look up like what words they would use back then, like
and I just turned around and I pulled ass out of there. I was done.
Back then.
I wasn't dealing with that.
Maybe just look up werewolf. Wouldn't that be wild if you found a
The hypocrisy of the cult.
That's something I've tried to find online. I haven't been able to find too much. I've seen stuff here and there, but anytime you actually
when
find
I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us.
So there's nothing
and
like actual.
One of the things I remember the most were the eyes were going red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for
message me and tell me the name of the town.
And he begins to tell them
digging, because now I'm
he
curious.
saw a UFO. They're basically
We've been going on for about an hour, so we can actually probably get ready to wrap this one up.
All right.
That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around
before we do,
and that's where I saw the top of the muzzle.
I know you do a lot of research
and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like
someone
death.
from your area to, if they've ever had an experience, to like reach out to you for something.
Oh, sure. Yeah, people reach out to me all the time, and I love hearing their stories.
Do you have an email or something you'd want them to reach out to?
They can just reach me through Facebook.
Okay. You want to let them know your name or who to search for?
Oh, sure. Yep, Kristen Evans. And if you look up on Facebook, my current profile picture is me with an alien. And underneath my name is Bridgewater Triangle in parentheses. I'd give you my web address, but it's in the process of changing domain names. So
if you
I do have a website, though.
I say if you get your website and information figured out before this episode comes out, I can put it in the show notes for anyone listening. And even after it's out, I can always update it. So you can just...
All right, thanks. I appreciate that. And I also have a little merch business for Bridgewater Triangle t-shirts, books, anything Bridgewater Triangle related. And that's Bridgewater Triangle Station. You can find my business page on Facebook as well.
Awesome. I will make sure to have that in the notes. You can send me a message with your links to it, and I'll put those in there too.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Yep. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, that was fun. Flew by.
You have a good night.
All right. Good night. Bye.
No. If you would like to be a guest on Tinfoil Tales, remember to send an email to tinfoiltalespodcast@gmail.com, or you can also go to tinfoiltales.com and go to the contact section. Just make sure to reach out and get a hold of me, and we will get something scheduled for a future episode. You can also find Tinfoil Tales on Facebook and Instagram. Just look for Tinfoil Tales Podcast. You can reach out to me that way too. Remember to share the show around. Word of mouth is the best way to help the show grow. And just remember, truth comes at cost. Are you willing to pay the price?